Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Wine. Welcome back to art class. Today, you will be continuing working on your op art project, and this is part 2. This should be the video that you are watching if you want to create the cones version of op art. So if you circled the cones on your paper, and if you started last week with this step, this is the next video for you to continue with. Now, in addition to your paper from last week, you will need a pencil and a Sharpie marker. You will also need your op art directions. This shows you how we started the artwork last week, and it has your next 2 steps to add on. Today's first step says, fill each section with curved lines that point in toward the center point. Make the lines closer together when they are closer to the point. I'm actually going to show you a different version of that here. You could certainly do that. You could make all of the lines curve as if those curves are pointing toward the center, but a second option would be alternating those curves. Let me show you what I mean. If I start here on my paper, and it said I want those curves to be closer together, closer to the middle. So I'm going to make this curve in towards close to the center of the circle. And here's the next one. And here's another one. And now I'm going to start to move them a little bit further apart. And maybe I have room for just one more piece of one right out here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 or so curves. Maybe a few more. Maybe I could get another one in here close to the middle. Now, I could make them all curve that same way. Or I could switch the next section up. So one group curves and the curve points in toward the middle. The next part, the curve is going to point out toward this side. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to make this curve point out. And then the next curve's going to point out. And then the next one's going to curve out. The next one's going to curve out. They're getting further apart the further along I go. And this one I might have part of it, but maybe not quite the whole thing. And so then I just want to keep going. If this one points in, this one points out, now it becomes a little pattern. Points in. These lines do not have to perfectly match up. I want them to get a little bit further apart. And a little further apart. And if those point in toward the middle, the next row is going to point out towards the edge of the paper. And the idea is I'm trying to make each one of these little sections look like it's a cone with those stripes. And I just want to keep going. If this one points out, this one points in. Close together, moving a little further apart. And then if this one points in toward the middle, this one's going to point toward the outside edge of the paper. Outside edge of the paper. And then this one's going to point in toward the middle, close together, getting further apart. And the next section, those are going to point away. Oh, I don't know if I can squeeze one in there or not. Maybe just a little bit. The next one's going to point in toward the center. In toward the center. And then the next one is going to point out toward the edge. I'm almost there. This one's going to point in toward the center. And this one's going to point out toward the edge of the paper. And then once I have every section filled, the last step simply says, trace all of those lines with the Sharpie marker and go back and erase any stray pencil lines. So now all I have to do is carefully take my Sharpie and make sure that I'm going right on top of all of those pencil lines. When I'm all the way finished, I will take an eraser and I will make sure if there is any place that I can still see a stray pencil line that I didn't quite get that marker on top, then I'm gonna make sure I go back with my eraser, like I can see a few little stray lines right here, and I'm gonna erase it all the way. And that's it. I'm just gonna keep going until my page is done. When I'm finished, I'm gonna put this in my art portfolio and I'm gonna save it for next week. And then next week, we're gonna be ready to start adding color. I hope you have a wonderful week. Make sure you go slowly and carefully while you're tracing. Save your work when you're done. And until next time, keep on creating.